Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off because today I'll be reviewing and paging through Starfinder Serpents in the Cradle from Paizo Inc. Is this second chapter of the Horizons of the Vast adventure path worth picking up, or should you avoid being bitten by these serpents altogether? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. As I mentioned in the open, I am going to be reviewing Starfinder Serpents in the Cradle in just a few moments. But first, I do want to remind you that we're in the midst of the Gaming Gang October Spooktacular 2021. And what that means is each and every day throughout the month, you're going to find a brand new tabletop gaming related video at thegaminggang.com. And of course, here on the Gaming Gang YouTube channel. It might be a first look or a review like today's video. Or if it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, that means it's a live stream of my show, The Gaming Gang Dispatch, where I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news, plus a first look at a tabletop game. And that's at 7 p.m. Central. Do want to mention each and every night in October at 9 p.m. Central, come join me as I host a spooky old-time radio broadcast, which is guaranteed to put a chill down your spine. So if you're looking for some extra Halloween fun, by all means, come on by thegaminggang.com. That said, today I am going to be reviewing Starfinder Serpents in the Cradle. This is the second chapter of the Horizons of the Vast adventure path. It is written by Hillary Moon Murphy. This 64-page softcover carries an MSRP of $22.99, or you can grab the PDF for $15.99. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Serpents in the Cradle. A couple of things. Well, three things, really, before we jump in. First off, the fine folks over at Paizo Inc. were kind enough to provide me with this review copy of Serpents in the Cradle. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my thoughts about this adventure with you. These days, it's important that you know that. Also, this is an adventure we're taking a look at. Here there be spoilers. So if you are a player and you're hoping your game master is going to run the Horizons of the Vast campaign, I would recommend you tune out, because even though I'm going to avoid a lot of set piece encounters and things like that going on in the adventure, there's still going to be some spoilers. And lastly, I'm going to stay right here, picture in picture, up on the left corner. So that means I'm going to cut off the upper left portion of the book as we go paging through. We're not going to take a look at each and every page. I just want to give you a good feel for what's going on in this adventure, if you might like it, and provide some thoughts about what I dig and what I may not dig about Serpents in the Cradle. So let's jump on in. So if you're not familiar with this adventure path, what's going on is the player characters are administrators of a charter on a planet that is being colonized. And the thing is, they're not the only colony there. There's all these other corporations and independent companies and governmental agencies that are all colonizing this planet. So the player characters have a charter. So that means they've got a piece of the pie that they have to oversee. I got to point out, the first chapter of this adventure, I wasn't super keen on. Let's be honest, a lot of the Starfinder, a lot of the Pathfinder adventures are kind of railroady, and that's just, it comes with the territory with these. They're not sandbox adventures by any stretch of the imagination. But what really threw me off on the first chapter was there was something going on that the players had to role play through, and it was going to take up quite a bit of time, and it was made out to be a really important thing. And then, of course, regardless if it was positive or negative for the player characters, it was those ex machina. It was basically, it didn't matter because right afterwards, it was all overturned. And I thought that was a no go. I did not like that at all. Thankfully, we don't have anything like that going on in this adventure. So we've got 3 parts to this adventure. The first part is a bit more of a hex crawl like we had in the first chapter. First chapter had a good amount of hex crawl going on, a lot of set pieces, a lot of encounters that were going to take place. Now, one aspect of the charter is that the player characters, they have to explore the land, because unless they explore these different areas, they cannot take possession. They can't claim ownership of them. And here's a map of the area here. So there's not as much hex crawl in this as there was in the first chapter. Also, do want to point out that if you are planning on utilizing serpents in the cradle, you got to have the first chapter, because there's a lot of rules to developing the colony that are going to be in that first chapter, as well as in the Galaxy Exploration Manual. But you need to have the first chapter to continue on into the second. So as I mentioned, we got the first part of this adventure is more exploration. Also, the second chapter, we get to the point where we've got a carryover from the first chapter. So in the first chapter, the player characters discovered this abandoned laboratory because, for one, they think they're the first like sentient race or sentient peoples to actually reach this planet. And then they find out, well, wait a second. In the distant past, there were other colonies here. So it's kind of a mystery. And they discover that there's this hidden monastery, this buried monastery. So that's what they go and try to track down. Now, they're going to explore it. It's a bit more of just kind of a dungeon crawl with that. That is kind of short as far as the adventure goes. Now, the biggest thing going on in the second chapter is this kind of evil consortium has sent a group to kind of freeload on the player character's charter. So they've basically established a town that's right on the border. It's actually part of the player character's charter, but if they were to try to use legal means to get them out of there, it's going to be tied up in red tape forever. So your player characters are going to end up going and checking out this town called Fish Fair and trying to decide what they're going to do. One thing I do recommend is if you have already run the first chapter or you're about to run the first chapter, really focus on those NPCs from the first chapter, because you want to try to tie them further into the second chapter. Now, the colony's growing and time does pass. In fact, quite a bit of time does pass throughout this campaign because as the colonies grow. So you have new NPCs arriving to the colony. So don't let the other NPCs take a back seat, because your player characters are going to be faced with some moral dilemmas in this adventure, and you really want that to hit home. Now, I do want to point out that the big bad at this rogue town isn't a great big bad. I would make him a bit more of a mustache twirling villain than they're presented here. Also, they're behind some sabotage going on in the player character's colony. And we had sabotage going on in the first chapter as well. And I think it's a little too much more of the same. Although I would actually kind of boost up the sabotage that's taking place this time around so that it's pretty critical stuff. The way it's written, not so much. It's not as if that, oh my gosh, this sabotage is going to throw the entire colony into disarray. that's something I would probably bring to the fore. So what's going to happen is the player characters are going to have to discover who is the big bad, dispose of them, as well as a couple of colonists who are under the control of alien beings. And then they're faced with the dilemma of what are they going to do with this town? Because the folks who are citizens of this town aren't necessarily evil. Some of them are criminals, and some of them are just trying to make a second go or a new go in life. They are not necessarily part of the scheming of this consortium. So I thought that was very interesting that the player characters are going to be faced with a dilemma of what are they going to do? Are they going to force these people out? Are they going to just completely absorb the town? Are they going to let the town remain and be effectively independent from the player character's charter? So a lot of stuff going on there that I definitely do like. So then we get into the consortium. This is the Aspis consortium. This is like the big bad corporation who I believe is going to play a much larger role throughout the 6 chapters of this adventure. Although there is a like planet destroying force that is the major challenge of this campaign. Although we really haven't seen much of it yet. It's been hinted at with the monastery, the mission, as well as the abandoned lab. But we're going to find out more about that in later chapters of this as well. So we've got this despicable consortium that sent that group to freeload on the player characters. Then we get into the toolbox. We're going to get some new archetypes, and we get some NPCs, some new creatures, some new artifacts as well, and a good amount of new creatures in here. And then, of course, we have a new ship. We always have a new ship with each of the Starfinder adventure paths. We get a new world. We get information about a new planet in here as well. I don't necessarily care for the look of this ship. It's got this kind of serpent head look to it. But I actually do like the deck plans for it. I thought that's pretty cool. So that is Serpents in the Cradle. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can provide my final thoughts as well as a review score. So I got to say, I do like Serpents in the Cradle more than I like the first chapter of this adventure path. Once again, it's kind of railroady. Once again, that's how Starfinder and Pathfinder pretty much are. Deal with it. I know people get upset and they complain. It's just how it is. I mean, a lot of modern role-playing games are point to point to point set piece encounters. There isn't a lot of fly by the seat of your pants kind of, open-ended stuff. I like the second and third parts of the adventure much more than I do the first. As far as the exploration, there's some interesting encounters, but it's kind of more of the same from the first chapter. It's the hidden mission as well as this town that's just shown up out of nowhere that the characters find out about as they emerge from this underground monastery. That really does add a lot of flavor to this adventure. I got to say, I like where this adventure is going. I think the third chapter is going to be pretty interesting because I understand the player characters are going to have to assist another charter on the planet. I think that can make for some pretty cool role playing, depending on how that's presented. On a scale of 0 to 10, I do recommend Serpents in the Cradle. I give it a 7 out of 10. Definitely check it out if you are looking for a role-playing adventure where the players are colonizing a planet and they're actually the bosses as well. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also tell you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for taking some time out to watch this video. And until I see you next time, here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel? Or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch? Or finding out what YouTube recommends you check out here at my channel? And of course, don't forget, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com.